Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8 Take Two. We had some complications last night, so we're doing this again. So I want to introduce you to our speaker tonight. But first of all, Zoom at 8, we've been doing this for over 6 years. We have been meeting every Tuesday night. And so I want to thank you all for the support. If you're looking at deals, which you should be, because there are some deals out there, a lot of deals out there, but not all of them work, right? So I want to encourage you to, before you go into an LOI, you take a stop at Old Capital, Julianne Peterson, and we can underwrite that deal for you in about 48 hours to see if you can get your very best lending, which is your agency financing. If we're at 90% occupied and you have net worth, liquidity, and experience, we're going to go that direction. If it's below 90%, we're going to look for other options. Maybe a bank, maybe a bridge, CMBS, or Lifeco might be a better solution for you. So we're going to look at that deal with your T12 rent roll, your underwriting. All those should be in Excel. And then maybe if it's available, an offering memorandum. Package that up. Tell me where this asset is and how many units, what you want to pay. Send it over. I'll have it underwritten. Our analysts will give us some feedback and I'll shoot you over a quote. It's that easy. You do not want to be overpaying assets in this market. So we're going to hear from Lane Beene today. And by the way, Lane has a special place in my heart. I am an investor in his deals. I highly recommend him and I want to share him with you. And Lane has been in this game for quite some time. He is from Fort Worth, Texas. Lane attended the U.S. Air Force Academy, where he was a standout defense and captain of the Falcon football team. After graduation from the academy, Lane attended pilot training at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas. His follow-on assignment was in a F-16 Fighting Falcon to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. Lane served in the Air Force for a total of 28 years, a little bit longer than I've been alive. You've completed 15 combat deployments, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you've logged over 5,500 hours. Although flying was Lane's greatest passion, his interest in business led him to obtain a master's degree in business administration. And in the wake of the 9/11, Lane sought out to build his real estate investment business. He started with one single family, like many of us, and then Lane bootstrapped his portfolio of 10 single family homes before cashing them all in and syndicating his first multifamily deal in 2014. Again, these deals take time, and this is what we're going to talk about. Lane's first commercial project was awarded Property of the Year. It was by a Tarrant County Apartment Association, and he beat out 1,450 other properties in that region. Lane brings in the discipline and character of his military career to the commercial real estate business. Lane says success in business is all about team building and relationships, and I can't agree more. In his free time, Lane enjoys hunting and fishing with friends and participating in various business and faith-based mastermind groups each week. Lane also remains actively engaged in sport and general aviation and recently obtained his glider certification. So it is with great honor and friendship that I welcome to Zoom at 8 the person who is and does not lack confidence or personality, a very direct Lane Beene. Welcome to Zoom at 8, Lane. How are you?
Thank you so much for those kind and friendly words, Julie. I'm doing fantastic, and I'm excited to share with you and share with your audience what I learned in multifamily and what I'm continuing to learn and become better at in real estate investing.
Your trademark is become a better millionaire. Tell us what your story is. We know you've been a pilot, which is, very enticing for me. I love my pilots as my son is a pilot. Um, you're on a mission when you're in the military, and a mission is similar to how you go about your assets as an owner operator with Pilot Legacy Group. Can you walk us through an example that you were in the military as an F-16 pilot, how you marry your experience there to multifamily? I know you have lots of stories, so share
Yeah.
with us one of those and how we can learn from you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Julie. So, one of the things that you always see with military veterans or people who have military experience is the military really is an exceptional training agency. They train their young men and young women, soldiers, airmen, sailors, exceptionally well. And that's why our military is so strong, is because we always have well-trained and well-equipped, members. And so when you ask me this question about, share your experiences and relate them to business, it's just almost impossible not to think of one of these missions and look back at the results of the mission and then quantify that with the training that I received, because aviation is is a very high, intense, employment and requirements. And so you have to be very well trained. And so the training process has been refined, refined, refined until it's just exceptional. And so before I tell just a short story of my combat experience, I can just, I mean, it would take me months and months and months of Zoom at 8 to talk about the level of training, the execution of our training, and then the feedback of it that makes us so good. And so the thing about military, and especially in aviation, is I've been able to adapt or adopt that philosophy of training to business and the execution of a mission to business. And I think it really pays great dividends when you're well trained, you're well prepared, you have a focused mission. I mean, there's nothing you cannot accomplish. And I try to take what I've learned from the military and apply it to business in a successful role. So a real long story,
Short.
real briefly, you know, real briefly summarized, was I was flying in the year 1999 in Yugoslavia, as that country was in the midst of a civil war, and Serbia was trying to reestablish authority over Kosovo, and there's a lot going on there, and a lot of political and global, politics, but they were in the middle of a civil war. And so President Clinton directed the military, the Air Force and Navy, all air power, to go over and try to control, stop, limit, this Civil War damage to civilians. And so I was flying at night, and we were flying in a period over Kosovo for about an hour. And about 45 minutes into it, I got targeted. In other words, somebody had the surface to air missiles had their crosshairs on me. I was up at 20,000 feet, and they targeted me and they shot a missile at me. And so they shot a missile at me. I defended and did my maneuvers to defeat that missile, and was able to defeat the missile, and then at the same time protect the other Air Force, Navy, and NATO aircraft that were my responsibility. So that's the story in a short version. You can see the other version on YouTube if you want, a little longer, where I describe it. But the point of it was, a lot of people say, well, Lane, were you scared or were you anxious? And the answer to that is no, because I was so
Mm,
well trained and prepared for that particular situation that I knew what to do. It would be much like this. Imagine if you were a doctor and someone had a heart attack, you would know what to do because you're trained and a doctor. But I'm not a
mm,
doctor, if someone had a heart attack, I would be frightened because I don't know what to do. So in that context, when I talk about business now, we have to go into business, real estate or retail, whatever it is, and we don't expect the worst, but we're planned and we're prepared for situations that don't go as we want them to. Interest rates change. My labor becomes a shortage. Material costs expand. These are all things that we hope don't happen, but we know that if we're in the game for a long time, that will happen. And you have to be ready. You have to be trained. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to have a plan B. You have to have a break glass in the event of this
Mm.
to be successful because the plan never goes according to what you have identified. So I don't know if I
You,
answered your question,
you,
Julie. Feedback from anytime.
it's great. I mean, we can go off on many different avenues here. I remember you saying plan for when your plan doesn't go as planned, right? And
Yeah.
that is terrific. Really great way to think of things. Now, when you start out as a operator, you're as in single family, you decide to go to syndication. You have to come up with partners. Now you're in as a pilot, you have and you're in formation or whatever, you have partners that you can rely on in the military. You have to find the same in multifamily. So talk a little bit about your partnerships, some that have worked out, but now you're with a group that works out that's been very successful. Why did you choose them? What was your alignment? What were you looking for? What are the tenets of those decisions?
Yeah. Julie, you are on the heart of success. And I say that because um, you talk about these different aspects of a business, and let's just say real estate business. Let's focus it down to that so
Yeah.
we can talk. So you've got property management, asset management, lending, repair, just all sorts of different components that are necessary. But as you put these together, you've got to have a full team that you can run. This business is just too complicated. It's too large for any one person to know everything or any one person to do everything. So one person in this organization has to be responsible for establishing the teamwork, the direction, and the vision, and then putting the right people in the right places. And that's the selection of partners, whether they be your general partners that are going to make day-to-day decisions along with you or support you, or maybe a partner that's in a limited role that doesn't really want to participate in management, but they may want to participate in the project with their contributions either through sweat equity or through actual cash equity. And so you really need to, that one operator, whether it's Lane or Julie or one of the other, listeners on this podcast today, um, or or Lane or Julie are participating with a general partner. Either one of these, the story will tell the same, but you really need to qualify that partner. And I'll talk about the questions that I ask in just one second. But the point of it is because that is where if there's a fracture in any one of these business components, let's say you have a storm damage and the roof is damaged, or there's some wind and storm damage. Well, those things
Mm.
are a setback perhaps, but they can be repaired. And then once they're repaired, you move forward. But if you have a partnership fracture, or you disagree with your partners, or you don't get along with your partners, the project is in great threat because it's very hard to put that team back together when there's been some fractures or frictions in it and continue to move forward. So this topic, and I know I've been long-winded and I apologize, but it's really important, is this topic is very important. Whether you're the general partner signing up other partners to work with, or you're a limited partner and you're contributing your sweat equity or your equity into a partnership. So the having said all of that, and I apologize about that taking a little bit longer, but it's such a critical part. This is what I would ask, and I think this is probably one of the better questions is let's say, Julie, you came to Lane and you said, Lane, I want you to be a limited partner in one of my investments, or you want me to be a general partner. The first question I would ask to you, Julie, is tell
Mhm.
me about your team. Tell me about your partners that you're currently involved with, and tell me the experiences you've had with them, both good and bad. And really, what I'm listening for is just a genuine and sincere answer. It doesn't have to be a good, great answer. Like, we're 61, we're 65 years been married and we're, marital bliss. I'm not looking for that. I'm just asking, I'm looking for a transparent and a candid answer that makes sense to me, and that you have some established relationships more than 6 weeks old or 6 months old, and these people are your trusted confidants. And if that's the case, then you have quality people in your on your team, then you're probably going to answer that question correctly. And so that partnership and how you select them, it's one of the most important parts of a real estate investment.
So there are four items that you talk about in making a decision as a limited partner. And one of them is your partnerships, right? You really want to figure out what is the strategy. Maybe you could walk us through those four items. I think it's imperative that it goes right in line with the partnerships so that we're making the right as a limited partner and opportunities, right? Because everybody's looking for cash right now. There's not a lot of cash. People have lost a lot of money over the last 2 or 3 years. And as a limited partner, these are the things that you want to make sure you're asking. Again, we've already talked about the partnerships, but kind of walk us through those four items.
Yeah, this is I love this question, Julie. This is so important, and I just don't see many people talking through this process of how does a limited partner make the decision to invest, or
Mm,
how does a general partner accept a limited partner's commitment. It has to marry. Otherwise, just like this, the teeth on a gear have to mesh. It doesn't matter how strong the engine is or how good the transmission is. If these get out of alignment, you're going to have problems. And so you have to really, when you're talking about the general partner and the limited partner or whatever combination, they have to mesh correctly, right? And so
mm,
these are some of the questions that I think about, and I think about this and I talk about it only because it's a lesson that I've learned. When
mm,
it's out of sync, it causes problems. And it's not because I'm wrong or they're wrong. It's just we were out of sync. It wasn't correctly lined up. And so there's a
mm,
process that I use, and I refer this to everyone for your own benefit so that you can be in alignment with this investment. The number one is, and these are funnels in the sense that if the number one, it's a four process funnel. If process two is disqualifying, you don't need to go to three and four. It's
mm,
disqualified you. Okay.
mhm,
So the number one thing is your real estate investment strategy. Okay. An example of a strategy would be a value added strategy where we're going to go in and renovate a project and we're going to add value, and then we're going to increase that value and at some point sell for a higher price or recapitalize for a higher price. That's an
mhm,
example of a value add or an income based strategy. The property is already in good condition, it's run well, and we're looking to buy this and not put a lot of money back into it, but manage it as a cash flowing asset, knowing that we probably bought it at market value and there's not a lot of backside value to it. We're going to get the value over the holding period through distributions. So find out what that strategy is and make sure that matches with what your objectives are. In other words, let's say like my daughter is in law school and I need immediate cash to help scholarship her. And in 3 to 4 years, she's going to be a lawyer. So I don't need as much money downrange as I need now. And so if I'm trying to buy a project, right, and invest my money that's going to pay off in 7 or 8 years, that's not going to match with what my objectives are. And so this investment is not one, regardless of where it is and other aspects, is something I should invest in. So number one is strategy. Understand that. All right. Does that make sense, Julie? That's an important point. You want to,
Absolutely huge. And I think we've talked about this in the past. A lot of investors don't know. They're unaware. They're just so excited. They've understood, oh, I can make money in multifamily, but they have no idea. They're not educated on their deployment of capital and what's important and what is realistic. So having those conversations, I think, is really, really important in
yeah.
understanding. Yeah,
And,
good
and the
point.
point of that, Julie, is because a real estate investment is much like a straitjacket. Once you get into it, it's
Mm,
not easy to get out of. And you have to really, be patient and understand this is a 3 to 5 year investment hold period. And so if you need your money in a year from now, this isn't going to work for you. And that's an example of where you've
mhm.
got these gears that they're not sequenced up. It's not that you're wrong or the sponsor's wrong. You need your money. He or she's not ready to give it back to you because the business plan hasn't been fully executed. And you just can't eject out of it. You've got to stay in the project because more than likely there's multiple other investors that you would jeopardize the whole investment if you wanted your money out and there's just no money to be out of it. So number one is strategy. Make sure you're lined up and make sure you understand the timing, the risk associated with this, the payoff, where are you going to get any distributions, if at all, where is the value coming from? That's really important. If those questions don't line up with what you want, it's disqualifying. Just move on and say, this isn't the right investment for me at this time. Thank you. Please let me know on the next and look other places. Number two on that funnel, if you pass that one, number two is the team, the partnership. We've talked about that. Okay.
Mhm.
Make sure that they've got a good team around them and hopefully they have some track record with that team. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean they have to have 100 years of experience. Just what have you done? Who have you done it with? Who are we going to utilize for this project? And what is their experience? And it doesn't have to be, Warren Buffett, but it should be somebody that's qualified or has good values or has some, successful experiences in the past.
So
That's number two.
yeah, so I want to inject here a question because a lot of folks on our Zoom at 8 are new investors. They're trying to get established. They're looking for sponsors. This is their first deal. They don't it's all a piecemeal situation. As an investor, I think that can be difficult for them to get wrap their arms around a brand new wanting to support their friends and family when they're new to this. Having a sponsor that's done this before, yes, that helps. But in your opinion, how does a new person go out and capital raise when they're when this is their first deal and
Yeah,
not
very hard.
necessarily knowing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a big hurdle because they don't have experience in this area. But we've stepped out and pioneered in several areas. We pioneered a little in opportunity zones, and we can talk about that later. We pioneered
Hmm.
in syndications and other things. But the success, I believe, in what you're mentioning, and let me give you this example. A good mentor of mine told me this. He's a single family developer, and he said, he went to Texas Tech, and so there's some West Texas logic in his country witticisms, is what I call them. And he said, if you want to be successful, let me give you this advice. Move back to your hometown, find the best single family home builder in your area, buy the lot right next to them, steal their plans, and copycat what they do. You know, he was being funny, but the point of that was very accurate. Find someone that's
Mm,
already successfully doing what you want to do,
hmm.
develop that relationship with them, and most of the time they'll teach you what you need to know. You don't need to if you're persistent and diligent about that and are able to add value to them, they'll reciprocate in most cases. And that's the best learning. Find a mentor that's successful or partner with someone that already has experiences that you're looking to do. Like you said, hey, how does this inexperienced novice real estate investor
Mhm.
raise capital? How do they put a deal together? It's
Mhm.
partner with somebody that's already done a deal successfully. And you can, like I could say, hey, I don't know lending, but I'm going to partner with Julie. And then when I make that phone call, hey, I'm a lender, I can say, and my partner is Julie. She has 7 or 8 years of experience doing these things. You don't need to say I'm relatively new, but you could say, we're working together and
Mhm.
go underneath their counsel. So the
Yeah.
start, as kind of like you mentioned, as an aviation, start as a co-pilot, first. Don't
Yeah.
expect to,
Great. Yeah.
out of your first solo to pilot a
Mhm.
747 across the Atlantic Ocean with 400 passengers. That's unrealistic. But it is realistic to think I'm going to co-pilot with, these other experienced aviators, and we're going to fly from here to Oklahoma, Texas to Oklahoma. That's how you get your feet on the ground. And
Yeah.
then now I build on that. Hey, I've flown to Oklahoma. Let me now fly to North Dakota. Now let me fly to Chicago. And as you expand your wings, now you've got the experience and you can say, I'm experienced.
Yeah, and those passengers are going to go on to the next flight with you, right? To the next and the next and the next. So great, great
Right.
analogy. I love it. All right,
And let me
number,
tell, let me tell that other three things real quickly, and
yeah,
then you can ask me questions if you'd like. So we talked about that funnel, that four-step funnel. The very
yeah.
first one is the investment objectives. Or the strategy, yeah, that has to pass. If that doesn't
Mhm.
work, disqualified. Sorry, move to the next. The next is teamwork, right? We talked about that and some questions you can ask them and questions that you should be listening or answers you should be listening for. The third one is the market. Where is this asset located? In a state, in a region, in a certain submarket, and you have to understand that. And you should just ask that question, Julie, why did we decide to invest in San Diego? And there should be some logic there. Jobs, people moving in and out, supply and demand,
Mhm.
economic drivers, the policies for governance and multifamily housing. These should all be things that you should be listening for, right? Not
Mhm.
all of them have to be A plus, 10 out of 10 successes, but if there's one that's, hey, this is a liability, that's fine. No, there's no perfect market,
Sure.
but you should be able to address that. What about the school in that area? What about the crime? What about the immigration policies in that market? How are they going to
Mhm.
affect us? And
Sure.
they don't have to be A pluses. You should just have an answer for that. Hey, in this area, this is what the crime rate is, this is what the school system is, and this is the solution for it, or this is the possible remedy or the risk factor in doing that. So the market selection is the third criteria. So now we've gone one, two, three, or four, three, two, however you want to describe that. Each of those are qualifying. Now, only then do I start talking about the property? What's the age?
Mhm.
How many units? What's the makeup? What's the, demographics? But most people turn that funnel upside down and they
Good
only talk
point.
about, hey, the property, here's where it's located, here's the number of units, it's a 3-story, it's got a nice pool. And they don't ever get to the point of what's the strategy? What's the exit plan? What team are you going to use in place to make these repairs? They never get to that point until it becomes a point of friction, until it becomes this. And then now it's
Mm,
too late because your money's invested. They've already executed their business plan halfway through, or maybe there's a stumble. That's when the fractures begin and it starts to unravel. So it's really important that the last 10 or 15 minutes of our discussion are really part of a limited partner's systematic process of writing Lane Bean or Julie a check for this investment. Because if you do it wrong, you're in a straitjacket that you can't get out of
yeah.
for 5 to 7 years. It's not that I don't want to give you the money back. It's just the money's tied up in shingles and bricks and landscaping and windows, and I can't. I don't have a checking account like Google where I can exchange these things on the Wall Street, stock options. You can't get out, and so you
Yeah.
really have to understand what you're getting into.
Yeah. All great, great points. And I think they're valid and they need to be followed. So thank you for bringing those up. Let's step back a little bit. When you were building your team, you are a single family, went into multifamily. You're looking to build your team. You looked at some of the characteristics and the people that are on your team that you built this company. You've got a property manager, you have construction, you have all of the people that have the knowledge of the area of the skill set that you were looking for. You didn't necessarily recognize that you would need a construction person, that you were going to go into ground up construction potentially at the beginning. But, and maybe that's a question. Did you know that? And did you seek out these partners to be general partners on in your company from the very beginning? What was your mindset? Because for people that are new here, they maybe have attended a conference and they met the person at the coffee caddy and said, "Oh, I keep seeing you. Let's go into business together." That's not what we're talking about here. Yours was very strategic. So if you can quickly walk us through how you chose these particular people that you're doing business with.
Yeah, Julie, you're just hitting on this on the circle of success, and I say that because this principle is so important. I hope people understand this and put this on their mirror or whatever. If you want to become a millionaire, hang around five millionaires. If you want to become someone that's in good physical shape, hang around five people that are in good physical shape, and you'll become
Mm,
exactly what they are. And so, if you want to become a successful real estate investor, go find five successful real estate investors, and you'll become the sixth. So
mm,
what do you need? What do you need? Well, you identified it. There's components of real estate that have to be done correctly. Property management, acquisition and divestment, loan and financing. You get any one of these wrong, they are major pillars and cornerstones of a house foundation. Your house is going to fall down
mhm,
if you don't have the right
mm,
foundation in place. If you don't have the right financing structure in place, you're probably going to fail. If you don't have the right property management, your operations are going to suffer. And so as you go to these seminars or your LPs or GPs or the people in your audience or me or you too, I'm
mhm,
constantly looking for top new draft choices to join my
mhm,
team, whether that be property management, asset management, repair and maintenance, property managers, on the feet
mhm,
leasing officers or agents. You're
mhm,
always looking to put the best team on the field that you possibly can, and you're going to win the majority of the games. So how do I do that? Is I look for those components that are so critical. I've already mentioned them: finance, maintenance and repair, operations, leasing. Those are probably four of the seven critical components. You cannot get those wrong and not suffer. There's some other things that are, throwaway employments, the custodian, that's not a critical piece, but certainly there are critical components, and I'm constantly looking for those good people. And I'm not trying to sign them up as soon as I meet them. Hi, Julie, I'm Lane. You want to be part of my
mhm,
partner? No. Tell me more about what you do, Julie. Well, that sounds good. We have some common interest. Let's get a coffee next week and talk more about that. We develop this trusted relationship where over a
mhm.
period of time, we may find commonality on this one project, and that stimulates, a successful business, not just a successful agent. So, long answer, man, I'm getting so long-winded today. But
I
my
love it.
point is, let me just summarize it with this statement that your listeners can take away is find an area where you need assistance or you feel like it's a critical component on your team, and then ask other people about, hey, do you know anybody in property management that you would recommend? Get to know those people, find out if you have a common sense of values, find out what their track record is, and then over a period of time, develop that relationship out so that one day it may foster into, Julie, do you and I want to partner together on this next deal? Julie, do you and I want to develop a business together and we can be, co-founders of a specific investment business? But that takes a while to vet out.
Yeah, definitely. I always say that this is a long game, and you want to vet your partners. I've shared with you and our listeners some of the challenges that I've had, right? But I did see the way that you put together your group, your business. You have a property manager on on the GP side. That's what I really love that, because from single family, a property manager can make or break you. That was my experience. So when I saw you successfully having a property manager on your team, I said that's critical for me, and I followed that direction. I thought that was excellent. So, now let's talk about some of the things that you're seeing today, or some struggles that you're having in the marketplace. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, the bridge lending that we all jumped into, you and me, my clients. We put bridge debt on deals. Has been very challenging, right? Not
Yeah.
only for you as the operator, but also for the investors, because they're thinking, hey, you told me this is going to be 3 years, this is going to be 5 years. Kind of walk us through your experience. How are you finding things? That's number one. And then with your existing, and then also, where are you going today? Are you looking at deals? Are you thinking about the market, the opportunities? What are you finding? So let's talk first. How are your deals doing with bridge? What are you finding from investors? What are you saying?
Yeah. So, Julie, I think that you frame that a little bit differently than I would, and I don't like the way you frame that. And let me say that differently. You, it made it sound like when we got this debt financing, bridge debt, that we were wrong to do that. And
Yeah, yeah, I don't
yeah,
think
no,
everybody was doing it, right?
yeah.
So yeah,
And
it
this is
made
what I would
sense.
say. This is what I would say is think about in the 70s when you were in high school, right? Or I'm just
No,
kidding.
I think I wasn't even born in the 70s
Okay,
like
so you
you.
were in the 90s. I'm just going to use the 70s. Think about your mom. And she wore bell bottoms, right? But when you came along, you had your, what do they call it, peg your jeans or something? I mean, you roll your jeans up right around your ankles real tight. And that wasn't the fashion back then, right? But in the 70s, the fashion was bell bottoms, right?
Uh-huh.
That analogy probably most people can relate to. And so I'm going to bring that forward and say in the 2019, 2020, and 21, the fashion was
Mm,
bridge financing. And that currently is out of fashion for many reasons, but it's kind of not I wouldn't say it's a bad decision, but it was
no.
at the time it was the most affordable, it was
Mhm.
very popular, and it was the best match with the majority of the investment strategies. As we look
Absolutely.
back now, it's biting us because interest
Yeah.
rates accelerated faster over 18 months than they have in the history of interest rates.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that it's our fault that we utilize bridge financing. And now
Sure.
that the tides of the fashion has changed and interest rates that we didn't expect completely changed, and now we're out of fashion. Well, yes, that is true. We don't wear bell bottoms anymore. We don't bridge financing. But I don't think that's a fault that you can say, why were you so dumb, Lane? You
Yeah.
should never have done that. No,
Good
at the
point.
time, it was the most inexpensive, best use, and the best match for financing. Unfortunately, right now, it's biting a lot of people because the suspense was so short. It's a 3, 4, 5, 6 year loan, and now the market's declined and the
Mhm.
values have eroded, and this is causing a lot of problems. So, Julie, over to you. I wanted to make sure that that was clarified.
Yeah, very, very good point, Lane. And I would say that there are still people using bridge lending with this idea of it's going to be better tomorrow. But nobody, could have seen, none of the economists could have seen
You're
an
exactly right.
interest rate that would stay high for so long. Nobody. You can go back years, 1950s, 60s, 70s. Nothing historically showed that these interest rates would stay high.
Yeah,
So, you
that's
know, and to beat ourselves up, whether you're an operator or you're an investor in these deals, to beat yourself up is it's there's no point to it, right?
or beat the general manager. He
Right.
didn't know that. The experts and the best economists in the
Yeah.
world didn't project that. So I'm not an economist. I'm a real
Yeah.
estate syndicator.
Sure.
Some people have spent lifetimes studying the economy and studying interest rates, and they
Yeah.
missed it.
Hmm.
So it's unfair and it's naive to think that Lane or Julie could have called this. Okay, so let me go back to what you mentioned to me, Julie, at the start. You said, Lane, tell me about flying fighters. And I started and said, hey, we do this. And
Yep.
we were flying this mission. This is life or death situation. I'm protecting the lives of American airmen,
Mm,
NATO airmen, and I'm trying to prevent damage and destruction for the people of Kosovo, right? So this is the highest
mm,
stakes at risk on this particular mission. I've got to get it right. There is no error and there's no margin for
mm,
mistake in this mission, right? But remember what I said, as I said, I was flying and we were going to be in the over enemy territory for 60 minutes. 45 minutes into the mission, it was a cakewalk. I'm sitting there
mm.
smoking cigarettes, drinking milkshake, you know, and everything went exactly as planned,
Uh,
except minute 46 when I look down and there's a 15-foot telephone pole laced with 500 pounds of dynamite embedded with
mm,
hardened steel cubes, 5,000 razor blades that are targeting me.
mm,
I didn't expect that. I didn't want that to happen, but it did
mm.
happen. That's life. That's the challenges of flying military combat. I'm ready. I was prepared. I knew what to do. I wasn't afraid. I executed as I had trained and practiced. Okay? Move that forward to our discussion of we were prepared for bridge loans. We were
Sure.
prepared for variable rate. We were prepared to buy apartment 123 Main Street. And this was our model. This was our business plan. This is what we were going to do. This is how we were going to pay the bills. Guess what? 3 quarters into it, something changed. It's not my fault, right? I don't take fault that I raised the interest rates 11 times in 18 months. I didn't do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
But it is my responsibility to get to the best possible mission results in
Mm,
light of these threats. And so
mm,
that's the key. And I want your listeners and your audience to hear me is no project goes without challenges or difficulties or changes. But
yeah.
you're putting your money into the project. You're putting your trust into the team.
Mhm,
That's why I'm never going to take fault and say it's my fault interest rates changed. No, it's not.
mhm,
But I will never defer the fact it is my responsibility to get these soldiers, airmen, sailors, or investors
mhm.
to the mission successfully. That means the best possible return with the lowest possible risk. And hopefully that'll be a 2, 3x. But in today's market, that is a big, big mission to accomplish. And it may mean
Yeah.
we're just going to break even or we're only going to lose 75 cents on the dollar. That may
Mhm,
be excellent leadership to say, hey, we've salvaged a complete wipeout for 75 cents on the dollar. You may be mad at Lane and rightfully so, but that may be outstanding execution,
mm,
outstanding performance in light of the difficulties that we faced and in
yeah.
light of the current markets. So that's my, that's my perspective on today's market. You asked me, what are we doing now? What's our
Yeah.
current portfolio performance? What's our look forward? And,
Mhm,
we're struggling like everyone. We're swimming against
mhm,
a current. We're flying into a headwind. Everybody's facing it. and everybody's properties are probably underperforming.
Yeah. It is what it is. And it's takes a great strong character to be able to say what you just said, admitting, hey, it's not me, it's the market. It is, and to communicate that effectively to all of your investors. Because I think some investors can be not, they don't understand. They told you this is you told them this is what it is, and it is a risk. Investing in these deals, there's uncertainty, and you have to have patience with the operator. So, Lane, what are you doing moving forward? Are you looking at deals? I think you had mentioned that you're looking at about 3 or 4 a week. Um, are you finding any? Are you finding any equity? People excited to put their money into deals? What is the temperature for you?
Yeah, Julie, and I haven't been successfully closing deals
Mm,
because in light of this difficult market and these threats in every area, you have to be a little more conservative. You have to be risk, observant. And so a lot of the deals today, the math isn't mathing. And
mm.
one, because there's been a divorce between the ask and a requested price that hasn't
Yeah,
really married yet. Some properties have, but the ask is here and then what we evaluate them to be here, and that gap is just too big to close.
sure.
So a lot of that, as your audience and you and I know, the
Hmm.
the amount of transactions has dried up considerably, and there
Yeah,
just hasn't been a lot of transactions that have closed because of that. This is
yeah,
what they want, this is what they need, and this is what I'm willing to pay. The gap is too big for a
yeah.
variety of reasons.
The bid ask
But
spread has been there for 3 years or so. So I'm glad you're looking at things, with a wise eye, with investors in mind, with your company in mind. I think it's people got into this back in the early 20s and they quit their jobs and they had to go after, deal after deal after deal to get their acquisition fee so that they could tell their wives or husbands, "Oh, I'm being successful in this." But yet today they can't. We've lost a lot of investors. We've lost the LPs, and we've also lost a lot of operators. Just simply the fact that they just can't survive. So I think you do a great job communicating with your investors. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges in being an operator, telling the good, but also being able to dissect the bad and to communicate that effectively. So, how are those conversations going with your investors? How are you reaching out? I know I got a call the other day from Lane Beene to talk about what you're seeing, but from an investor standpoint, how are those conversations going?
yeah, those are difficult conversations, Julie, and a lot of
Yeah.
people avoid them. And
Hmm.
I don't necessarily like calling Julie and saying, Julie, our distribution promises to you
Yeah.
are going to be undercut this
Hmm.
quarter or this half, but that's important for you to understand. And even though you may not like it and I don't like it, it's important that we listen to what I'm saying here. It's very simple, but it's so true. We manage the expectations correctly, right?
Hmm.
Because when you signed up with me or my investors signed up with me, we had a expectation of what this project was going to do. And I just mentioned, and everyone knows that we are facing much stronger headwinds and a much
Hmm.
stronger current than we first modeled, right? We're going to go from point A to point B and we're going to have a 50 knot headwind. Well, now it's a 100 knot headwind, right? So it makes a significant difference and we're not going to be able to perform the same way. I've already said sometimes that's it's always my responsibility to communicate that, but
Hmm.
it's normally not my fault. But I'm not going to try to divorce that, or I'm not going to try to get into semantics of what those two
Hmm.
words mean. But in my
Hmm.
own mind, I can legitimately stand and say, Julie, it's my responsibility to navigate us to the goal. I'm not going to say it's my fault, but it is my responsibility. I'm not going to mince words there, and I'm
Yeah.
going into more detail probably than most people really want to know. But when I talk to the investors, I make sure that I give them my clearest and candid expectation so they can manage their
Mhm.
assumptions, they can manage their budget, and they may be disappointed, and so am I because we're facing these things. But to let them know, hey, these are the things I've identified as culprits that are leaking our profit. And some of them, we have a plan of action to resolve. And then some of them, unfortunately, we're just at the discretion of the market. But we've already identified why that third funnel, we're
Mhm.
investing in this market. So we've already identified this market is strong and I'm committed to it. And so I'm convinced that over a long horizon or longer horizon, this market will produce the fruits that we want. We're just going to have to manage our expectations correctly. That's through good communications and
Mhm.
accurate and candid answers to questions that are sometimes difficult and sometimes not real fun to answer, but they are critical so that you understand what the next 12 months looks like, the next 6 months, the next milestones of performance, and how we're going to measure those. And I'm going to give you a report. These are the property improvement plan that I have to rectify this particular issue. And I'm going to be reporting on a quarterly basis the results. You have to manage the expectation, and that's only
Yeah. I
through
think that
the
the expectation is really dealing with that first and foremost. I love the way you said that. Lane, people love to hear challenges like, how did you do this? You were in a deal recently, years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago. Gosh, I think it was 3 years ago, a deal in San Antonio. I was helping to raise some capital for that. You hit some challenges before you close. You were trying, this is right when the interest rates started to go elevate quickly. We saw a lot of retrading on pricing. Um, you had a significant amount of money that you were capital raising. You had a lot of money in as a general partnership, but you saw that there was an issue with the price. If we paid what the price was before the debt changed, it would have been a great deal. It would have been something that we would have been able to return a lot of capital to our investors. But as that changed, your team looked at it and had to go back to the seller for a price reduction. Now you're at the time where you've got hard money in this deal and a critical path to saying, do I keep going and risk my money as the operator or my investors' money? What were the steps that you took that may not have been all that helpful to you, but helpful to your investors and really showed your commitment to your investors? Walk us through that. It's a brilliant
Yeah.
story.
Well, you shared the majority of the details. I'll just summarize them. We were invested um, probably 50 days into a 90-day close for a
Mhm.
property in San Antonio for about 40 million. And the numbers worked out correctly. We had already established a couple of loan or a couple of debt quotes, and we were moving forward. We did an inspection
Mhm.
of physical property exactly like our business plan modeled. And then all of a sudden, the financing pillar, right? So I've talked about
Mhm.
different things. We need to find properties. We need to raise capital for properties. We need to put a business plan together. We need to do
Mhm.
the financing, the management, the maintenance and repair. That part that you just talked about is probably the most overlooked and the most critical, the financing strategy. Because if you get that wrong,
Mhm.
it's going to sabotage all the other components. There's really no recovery, no matter how well you operate, how well you execute your business plan. If the financing strategy is wrong or misaligned, you're probably going to fail and there is no recovery from it. So Julie, your folks at O Capital, I just can't mention enough how
Mm,
important your counsel is when you're
mhm.
setting up these strategies to make them right. Okay, that's a sidebar. Let me go back.
Thank you. Mm,
Um, so we've got this project in San Antonio, 40 million, and at the height of where we're within 20, 21 days of closing, interest rates
mhm,
go up, go up, go up, go up. The
mhm.
bank starts to panic. And now they were going to offer us on a $40 million deal, $31 million of loan value. Now it goes, hey, Lane, call me. I'm your banker. I call him. Hey, it's now 29 million. Okay, that's kind of sucks. Calls me the next day. Now it's 27
Mhm.
million and interest rates doubled. And all of a sudden, over a period of about 10 or 14 days,
It was quick, I
the,
remember.
the proceeds go from $31 million of loan value or 30 down to 22. And now
Yeah,
the leverage points, the interest rates, the amount of equity I have, it makes it doesn't even make any sense
yeah,
whatsoever. But now we're already 2 weeks away from closing. Our hard money escrow, which was fashionable at that period, you had to have hard money up
sure.
front, you had to have a big number, was
Yeah,
in jeopardy. And so the question came to us, hey, there's a left turn or a right turn, but we're at a dead end. We either have to raise more money, which we probably could have done, and we would have done, and close this deal at 40 million.
mm,
We tried to retrade to a lower number. They said, no way, we're not going to have any of that.
mm-mm.
And, or we're going to walk away from it. And as a general partner, we've already raised 10 million. That's limited partner. We've got about 750,000 in our own contributions. We're going to walk from that, or we're going to put $40 million of limited partner money at risk. It was a very simple decision. I knew exactly what to do. I didn't like to do it,
Mm,
and it wasn't fun, but
mm.
we walked and we walked. We lost a lot of money, the general partners. My limited
Yeah,
partners lost zero.
yeah,
And we returned some of that money. We gave them the option. Hey, we think this is still a good buy opportunity. We can look for another opportunity, and we found
yeah,
one, or we can refund your money. But we're not going to put your money at risk
yeah.
because of these things. They're not my fault. I didn't, but they are my responsibility. And my
I love it.
responsibility is to protect your money. And that's what I did. And it cost me a lot, but it was a perfect decision. And in hindsight, I'll summarize this,
Love it.
is we lost the equivalent of $1 value. But had we closed, that project has been marketed again to sell, and the sale value is now in the high 20s. So we would have bought something for 40 million
Oh,
and it would have been valued at 29 to 30 million. So we would have lost $10 million or we would have lost 750. I don't like to lose any of it.
mm,
But that's a very easy decision to make. It was,
mm.
yeah, I didn't sleep very well that night, but we made that
Oh,
decision. And I'm very proud of just the confidence and the peace and the contentment that, hey, you don't win every time. You don't go to the plate and hit a home run every time. I'm playing long ball. If you
yeah,
played short ball, we would have closed at 40 million, and I would have never have gotten into another investment. But I'm playing long game. I want Julie Peterson to be a multi-millionaire. I want for all the people on this podcast what I want for myself, financial freedom, so that I can
mm,
liberate and emancipate myself from the 9 to 5 employment. And you do that with passive income. And so I want for your listeners, I want for Julie what I want for myself. And you play short ball, you play the short game, those two things don't marry up. And that's what you have to understand when you partner with somebody. What's their goals? What's their intentions? What situations have they done successfully? And what situations have they done unsuccessfully? In my case, this project, right? And how do they take responsibility? How do they account for that? What did they do right and wrong? I can tell you many things what I did wrong, but I can also tell you at the end of the day, I think we made the right decision and I'm proud of that.
and to that, all of your partners were in agreement. It wasn't
Yeah.
like one, again, it's the cogs were together, right? I
Unanimous.
love that. I mean, that is so powerful. And you've dropped so many great little golden nuggets here. Lane, if you have some words of wisdom, we've talked a lot today, and I'm so thankful that you're giving me round two, take two of Zoom at 8 today. So grateful for that. And that comes from our friendship, our business together, and our friendship. What are some words of wisdom for the people that are listening? You've talked about limited partners, you've talked about the strategy, you've talked about being a general partner, the communication, loss. There's a lot that you have packed in here. We haven't even talked about your construction project that has done amazing, and we'll have to have you back on. Words of wisdoms for somebody here on all levels. What do you got?
Love that, Julie. I know your audience is so vast, and you've got people of all backgrounds and experiences. You have contractors that are serving in the housing, industry. You have general partners that are looking for limited partner capital. I mean, you just have a vast background, and different experiences, different professions. They're coming into this group, or maybe they've
Mhm.
been here a long time. And I think this knowledge, let me reframe your question a little bit, okay? What would I'm 56 years old.
What would I do without you reframing my questions? So that's the question. No, go
Well, I
ahead.
like to, I like to, I like to frame them my way. I can answer them that way. So, what would a 56-year-old Lane Bean, with my knowledge of what I've acquired now, and I'm certainly no expert, tell a 25-year-old person? What would 56-year-old Lane Bean tell 26-year Lane Bean? Right?
Mm,
And I've thought about this a lot. What
mm,
would I have liked to have known from my own self? Right? I'm not
mm.
taking advice from my dad, or my
Yeah.
brother or my next door neighbor. I'm taking advice from my most trusted person, myself.
Uh-huh.
What would I tell myself? And I
Mm,
thought about that, and this is what I would start. This is what I would say. Start as soon as you can, because time is your most valuable
mm,
resource. And the sooner you start, you're going to make mistakes. You'll never know it all. You'll never be completely comfortable until you're 90 years old, right? You
mm,
have to start now, today. Okay. Now, I know that a lot of your investors and even you and I don't have all the capital I need. I don't have all
mhm,
the knowledge I need. I don't know everything about what's going to happen in the economy. But just like I said when I was flying, I've got a vision. I've got a team. I'm trained. I'm educating myself to the best of my ability. I'm surrounding myself with people of excellence. I'm always looking to foster a new relationship. Hey, Julie, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Julie, can I buy you a bottle of wine? Let's talk about what we have in common. You tell me what your strengths are. Julie is somebody I need to know on my team to help me because she's a finance expert, right? And I'm better in this area. I'm not skilled in finance. I know a lot about it, but I'm always trying to bring in that network of
mhm,
excellence. Okay,
mhm,
so what is the advice that I would give? Start immediately, right? And that means that go out and meet people that are successful in this area. Go out and go to conferences. Go out and join your local real estate club and start
mhm,
meeting these people. It costs nothing, or it costs a very small amount.
mhm,
Then from that point, identify the next step. I need to budget more money, so I'll have investment money to invest. Or I need
mhm,
to learn in this area. I need to study books in the library. I need to go to YouTube. I need to go to these seminars. There's so many different aspects depending on what your objective is and how deep you want to get into operations management, syndications, or uh, operators, right?
yeah,
Sponsors. So my point after saying all of that is this is start early. Don't let these hurdles and obstacles prevent you from starting. Read books, look at YouTube, come to Zoom at 8, contact Julie and ask for more information. Build your network of other investors. This is what is so critical. And if you delay, it's you're gonna regret it.
Love it, Elaine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, if someone wants to connect with you, invest with you, learn more about you and your team, how would they do that?
Yeah. So you can go to our website. Most of our information is there. It's pilot-legacy.com. Or you can reach me at my email, lane.bean@pilot-legacy.com. So like I said, I love real estate. It's my passion. I love to create value, but really my purpose is, like I mentioned, to help you become a better millionaire. Our vehicle is multifamily housing passive investments, right? It's as simple as that. But the goal is not for you to own a bunch of real estate. The goal is for you to create streams of income that allow you to divorce or emancipate you from 9 to 5 employment. Then you have the time, the freedom of schedule, and the financial security to pursue your true life passion and to serve the purposes, the divine purposes for which you were put here. That's my goal. That's what gets me charged up. I love real estate, but that's just the vehicle to get us to point B. Point B is the abundant life, which that's what I want for myself, and that's what I want for other people.
Lane, you summarized it brilliantly. And as I mentioned in my socials, you will be inspired when you come and listen to Lane Bean. So you've really unpacked it brilliantly. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the next level for our investors here to get to know you. And the details that you've shared here are just critical for so many people in the room, their success. So I appreciate you dropping those nuggets, and I look forward to the next opportunity that we can get together and do another deal. Thank you so much, Lane.
You're welcome, Julie, and good luck to all of your investors.